When Jonathan Antoine first stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage, few people expected what came next. Nervous, soft-spoken, and visibly unsure of himself, he appeared overwhelmed by the spotlight. But the moment he sang, everything changed. His powerful voice stunned the judges, silenced the audience, and instantly turned him into one of the most unforgettable contestants in the show's history. Millions believed they were witnessing the birth of a once-in-a-generation star. But fame arrived faster than Jonathan was prepared for. Overnight, he went from a quiet teenager to a global sensation, carrying expectations far heavier than anyone realized. The applause was loud, but so was the pressure. While the world celebrated his talent, Jonathan was quietly struggling to find his footing beyond the stage that made him famous. After the cameras stopped rolling, his journey took turns few fans truly understood. Opportunities appeared, but so did setbacks. Confidence wavered. Personal challenges surfaced. And the young man who once brought an audience to tears had to confront a reality far more complicated than a standing ovation. So what really happened after Britain's Got Talent? Why did his rise seem to slow? And how did the weight of sudden fame reshape his life, his voice, and his future? This is the story of Jonathan Antoine after the spotlight faded, and the truth behind the silence that followed. Jonathan Antoine's life changed in a single audition. Before Britain's Got Talent, he was a quiet teenager from Essex, largely unknown outside his small circle. Singing was his escape, not a career plan. He performed mostly in school settings and local events, never imagining that one televised moment would place him under the harshest spotlight imaginable. Yet when he sang on that stage, his voice carried something rare: vulnerability, power, and emotional honesty. The judges' reactions became instant history, and so did Jonathan himself. But what audiences didn't see was how unprepared he was for what followed. Fame didn't arrive gradually. It exploded. Within days, Jonathan was being discussed across the UK and far beyond it. Interviews, appearances, expectations all came flooding in at once. For someone still figuring out who he was, the sudden attention felt overwhelming. The shy young man who sang from the heart now had to perform under pressure, knowing every note would be scrutinized. After the show, Jonathan and his duet partner went their separate ways, and this marked the first major turning point in his journey. As a solo artist, Jonathan faced a new challenge, standing alone without the emotional safety net of a shared performance. The public still remembered him as that nervous contestant, but the industry now expected polish, consistency, and confidence. This transition was far more difficult than fans realized. Jonathan signed professional deals and entered a world governed by schedules, expectations, and commercial decisions. Recording studios replaced classrooms. Vocal training intensified. Every performance mattered. While these opportunities were extraordinary, they also stripped away the simplicity that once made singing feel safe. His voice was no longer just his, it had become a product the world felt entitled to judge. At the same time, Jonathan was dealing with deeply personal struggles. Self-confidence didn't magically appear with fame. In fact, the spotlight magnified his insecurities. Online commentary, both supportive and cruel, began shaping how he saw himself. Praise was loud, but criticism lingered longer. For a young artist still emotionally developing, this constant evaluation created inner conflict. Physically and mentally, the pressure was exhausting. Maintaining vocal excellence requires balance, discipline, and emotional stability, things that are hard to sustain when life changes overnight. Jonathan worked hard to meet expectations, but behind the scenes, worked hard to meet expectations. But behind the scenes, he was learning difficult lessons about resilience and self-worth. Success didn't feel as triumphant as it looked from the outside. Musically, he gravitated toward classical and operatic styles, which brought respect but also limited mainstream exposure. While his talent was undeniable, the industry struggled to place him within a commercial mold. He wasn't chasing trends, and that choice, intentional or not, slowed his momentum. To fans, it appeared as though he had disappeared. In reality, he was navigating an industry that didn't know how to handle someone so young, so gifted, and so different. What made this phase especially challenging was expectation. Audiences wanted constant growth, constant visibility, constant proof that the early hype was justified. Jonathan, however, needed time to mature, to heal, and to understand his own identity beyond the label of talent show star. This early post-Britain's Got Talent period wasn't a failure. It was a collision between sudden fame and personal reality. Jonathan Antoine didn't fall away from success. He stepped into a much harder one where applause faded and self-discovery became the real challenge, and this was only the beginning of a journey far more complex than anyone watching from the outside could have imagined. As the excitement surrounding Britain's Got Talent slowly faded, Jonathan Antoine entered a phase of his life that was far more difficult than the public realized. From the outside, it appeared that he was living the dream, recording music, performing internationally, and being recognized for his remarkable voice. But privately, this period was marked by intense emotional and personal challenges that fame could not fix. One of the most significant struggles Jonathan faced was confidence. The shy teenager who once sang to escape his insecurities now found himself judged constantly. Every performance was compared to that first viral audition, and expectations remained impossibly high. Instead of feeling empowered, Jonathan often felt trapped by the image people had of him. He wasn't allowed to evolve naturally in the public eye. Any change invited scrutiny. The pressure also affected his health. Touring, rehearsals, and promotional demands created an exhausting routine. Vocal strain became a real concern, forcing him to be cautious about how and when he performed. For a young singer, the fear of damaging his voice added another layer of anxiety. Protecting his instrument meant saying no to opportunities, which sometimes gave the impression that he was withdrawing or losing momentum. Emotionally, Jonathan struggled with self-image. Sudden fame brought relentless online commentary, and not all of it was kind. Negative opinions lingered far longer than praise, slowly shaping how he saw himself. This constant exposure took a toll on his mental well-being, making him more guarded and introspective. Instead of enjoying success, he was quietly questioning his place in the world of music. There was also the challenge of identity. Jonathan wasn't just growing as an artist, he was growing as a person. He was transitioning from adolescence into adulthood under public observation, a process that is difficult even without an audience. Every decision, from musical direction to personal appearance, felt magnified. He didn't have the freedom to make mistakes privately. Despite these struggles, Jonathan continued working. He recorded albums, refined his classical technique, and gained recognition in more traditional music circles. However, classical success doesn't generate the same visibility as mainstream pop fame. To casual fans, his quieter path looked like disappearance. In truth, he was choosing sustainability over speed, even if it meant stepping away from the spotlight. Another challenge was emotional isolation. Fame creates distance, even from well-meaning people. Jonathan's circle became smaller, and trust became harder. The young singer, who once leaned on encouragement, now relied largely on himself. This isolation made his journey heavier, as there were fewer spaces where he could simply be human rather than a performer. Still, moments of strength emerged. Jonathan began speaking more openly, though carefully, about confidence and personal growth. These glimpses revealed a maturing individual learning to face his fears rather than run from them. The applause was quieter, but the progress was deeper. This of Jonathan Antoine's life was not defined by failure or decline. It was defined by survival. While fans wondered why he wasn't everywhere, Jonathan was fighting battles that couldn't be solved by fame or talent alone. The silence wasn't absence. It was rebuilding, and as difficult as this period was, it laid the foundation for something far more important than instant success: a sense of self that didn't depend on constant approval. After years of navigating pressure, criticism, and quiet self-doubt, Jonathan Antoine reached a point where something had to change. The path he was on, defined by expectations set when he was barely a teenager, was no longer sustainable. Rather than pushing forward out of obligation, he began the slow process of redefining who he was, both as an artist and as a person. This phase didn't happen publicly or dramatically. It unfolded quietly, away from headlines, exactly the way Jonathan needed it to. One of the most important steps in this reinvention was stepping back. Jonathan reduced public appearances and limited performances, not because he had given up, but because he finally understood the importance of balance. For the first time since his audition, he was making decisions based on well-being rather than visibility. This shift allowed him to heal emotionally, mentally, and vocally. Vocal health became a priority. Classical singing demands control, patience, and maturity, and Jonathan committed himself to long-term development rather than short-term applause. He refined his technique, focusing on strength and sustainability. This wasn't about proving anything to the public. It was about ensuring that his voice could carry him forward for decades. Not just moments. During this period, Jonathan also confronted his confidence issues head-on. Growth didn't come from praise, it came from self-acceptance. He began speaking more honestly about self-worth, acknowledging that success had not erased insecurity. These reflections resonated deeply with those who followed his journey closely. They revealed a young man learning to separate his identity from the expectations attached to his name. Musically, his choices became more intentional. He leaned into repertoire that felt authentic rather than commercially calculated. While this limited mainstream exposure, it gave him artistic peace. Jonathan no longer chased relevance. Instead, he focused on meaning. His performances, though fewer, carried more emotional depth and control, reflecting the inner work he had done. There was also a noticeable change in his presence. Where once he appeared nervous and unsure, he now carried himself with quiet confidence. Not loud, not performative, just grounded. This wasn't the confidence of someone seeking validation. It was the confidence of someone who had survived disappointment and come out stronger. Social media and public engagement became tools rather than obligations. Jonathan shared selectively, offering glimpses of progress without exposing every detail. This boundary helped him regain a sense of control that fame had once taken from him. For the first time, he was defining success on his own terms. Fans who rediscovered him during this phase noticed the difference immediately. The voice was still powerful, but it was steadier. The emotion felt deeper, not raw. This was no longer the story of a nervous teenager chasing approval. It was the story of an artist who had endured pressure and chosen growth. Instead of bitterness, reinvention doesn't always look like a comeback. Sometimes it looks like stability. Jonathan Antoine wasn't trying to reclaim his moment. He was building a future that didn't depend on viral fame or constant visibility. And in doing so, he achieved something far more valuable than applause: peace. This marked the turning point where Jonathan stopped living in the shadow of his past success and started standing in his own present. The spotlight no longer defined him, and that was exactly what allowed him to step forward with clarity. Today, Jonathan Antoine's life tells a story of resilience, self-discovery, and artistic integrity. The shy teenager who stunned the world on Britain's Got Talent is now a mature artist who measures success differently. Gone are the days of constant scrutiny, overwhelming expectation, and public comparison. What remains is a carefully crafted life in which Jonathan can thrive, create, and perform on his own terms. After years of self-reflection and selective engagement with the music industry, Jonathan has established a career that balances public performance with personal fulfillment. He continues to perform in venues that honor the depth of his classical voice, collaborating with orchestras, choirs, and other artists who share his dedication to artistry. These performances are no longer just about impressing audiences. They are expressions of a life fully embraced, rich with experience and emotional nuance. Jonathan's approach to music has also become more deliberate. He chooses projects that resonate with him, blending classical repertoire with modern influences that reflect both his growth and his unique identity. By prioritizing authenticity over popularity, he has earned the respect of critics, peers, and devoted fans who understand the courage it takes to resist industry pressure. This path may not make headlines, but it ensures sustainability, creative satisfaction, and personal peace. Outside of music, Jonathan has also built a life that nurtures his emotional well-being. He maintains a close circle of family and friends, surrounding himself with people who understand both his public history and his private struggles. Boundaries that were once a necessity have become a choice, enabling him to engage with fans selectively while protecting his energy and mental health. In interviews, he now speaks with clarity, warmth, and confidence, sharing insights without feeling exposed. A stark contrast to the nervousness of his early career. His journey also serves as an inspiration to aspiring artists. Jonathan's story illustrates that sudden fame is not always a blessing. It can be a test of endurance, self-awareness, and resilience. Rather than succumbing to the pressure, he found ways to reclaim control, redefine success, and build a sustainable career. This transformation shows that talent alone is never enough self-respect. Patience and courage matter just as much. Looking back, it becomes clear that Jonathan Antoine's life after Britain's Got Talent was never about immediate fame or instant gratification. It was about growth, about finding his voice not just as a performer but as a person. Each challenge, setback, and moment of doubt shaped the artist he is today, capable of performing with mastery, poise, and emotional depth. For fans who have followed him from the audition stage to today, the journey is remarkable. Jonathan Antoine may no longer be a constant fixture on mainstream television, but he has achieved something far more enduring, a life defined by purpose, authenticity, and a love for music that is both deeply personal and profoundly shared. The boy who once sang nervously on a stage has become a man who sings confidently, living proof that true artistry is measured not by fame but by the courage to stay true to oneself.